The provocation. The Drakari Empire had ruled the stars for millennia. Their sleek obsidian vessels traveled between systems with casual elegance, their diplomats securing resources through calculated negotiations backed by unspoken threats. For 20,000 years, they had perfected the art of expansion without unnecessary conflict. Why destroy what you could control? Why conquer when you could simply acquire? The Empire's Grand Counselor, Vex Morris, stood before the holographic display, her six-fingered hand tracing the spiral arm of the galaxy where a peculiar anomaly had appeared. Signals from an uncharted system had been detected, primitive communications technology, but surprisingly complex in content. The Intelligence Division had been monitoring this species for nearly a decade. They called themselves humans. "They've achieved faster-than-light travel," reported Admiral Krell, his scaled skin reflecting the blue glow of the display. "Crude, by our standards, but functional. They've established 7 colonies beyond their home system. Yet they have no unified government." Vex Morris' voice carried the Empire's typical disdain for disorganized civilizations. "Correct, Grand Counselor. Multiple nation-states, competing corporate interests, ideological factions. They spend as much energy fighting among themselves as they do exploring." Vex Morris' thin lips curved into what passed for a smile among the Drakari. "Perfect. The usual approach, then. Identify the dominant powers, offer technologies they cannot resist, and secure resource rights in exchange." The diplomatic mission departed within the cycle. 3 Drakari cruisers, escorted by a modest combat fleet, enough to demonstrate capability without appearing overtly threatening. First contact protocols were initiated. Messages were transmitted ahead of their arrival, offering friendship and exchange. Earth responded with cautious optimism. A meeting was arranged at their International Space Station, a primitive structure orbiting their homeworld. The humans sent representatives from their most powerful nations and corporations, all eager to be first to secure alien technology. Grand Diplomat Sev Nera led the Drakari delegation. She had negotiated the submission of 17 species to imperial authority. Her record was flawless. "We offer you the stars," Sev Nera told the wide-eyed humans. "Faster drives, advanced medicine, clean energy. In exchange, we ask for mining rights on your outer planets and asteroids. Resources you cannot yet reach. A fair exchange, is it not?" The humans asked for time to confer. They argued among themselves, just as intelligence had predicted. Nations accused each other of seeking advantage. Corporations jockeyed for exclusive rights. The Drakari observers recorded it all, identifying leverage points for future negotiations. When the humans returned, however, they did not bring acceptance. They brought questions, detailed, probing questions about the ecological impact of Drakari mining techniques, about labor practices in the Empire, about what had happened to other species who had made similar deals. "You misunderstand your position," Sev Nera said, her patience wearing thin. "We do not come as supplicants. The Empire offers you advancement beyond your capacity to achieve independently. The alternative is less pleasant." The human delegation withdrew again. When they returned, their spokesperson was different. A woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that reminded Sev Nera uncomfortably of a predator species from the Drakari homeworld. "We thank the Drakari Empire for their generous offer," the woman said, her voice cool and measured. "However, Earth and her colonies must decline. We will pursue our own path among the stars. We welcome peaceful trade and cultural exchange, but Earth's resources remain under human stewardship." Sev Nera was stunned. In 20,000 years of imperial expansion, no species had ever simply declined. They negotiated better terms, perhaps, but none had ever refused outright. It was inconceivable. "You would reject the protection of the Empire." Sev Nera managed to keep the tremor from her voice. "We haven't needed protection so far," the human replied simply. The diplomatic mission was recalled. The Grand Council was outraged. Intelligence reviews were ordered. How had they misjudged these primitives so badly? It appears the humans value their autonomy beyond rational measure. Admiral Krell reported. They are willing to forego significant advancement to maintain independence. Then they must be shown the cost of defiance, Vex Mora declared. Select one of their outlying colonies, something small enough that its loss will be felt, but not so significant as to unite them in grief rather than fear. New Eden was chosen, a farming colony of 15,000 souls on the edge of human space, rich in resources, limited in defenses. The attack was scheduled during their harvest season, when the colony would be most vulnerable and most productive. The Imperial battle group emerged from hyperspace without warning. 16 warships against a colony with nothing more than a small defense force and antiquated orbital platforms. It was not meant to be a battle, merely an execution. The orbital platforms were vaporized in seconds. Precision strikes eliminated communication arrays, power stations, and defensive emplacements. Then the real work began. Systematic destruction of infrastructure. Residential areas targeted with calculated efficiency. Just enough survivors left to spread the message. Defy the Empire. And this is the consequence. Within 6 hours, New Eden was reduced to smoking ruins. The Imperial battle group departed, mission accomplished. A message was transmitted to Earth. The Empire was willing to resume negotiations at their convenience. They expected capitulation within days. What they received instead was silence. Complete communications blackout. For 3 weeks, the Empire's monitoring stations detected nothing from human space beyond their usual internal communications. Then the storm broke. It began with a transmission on all frequencies, broadcast in the clear. A woman's voice, the same steel-eyed diplomat who had rejected their offer. But now her voice carried something new. Not fear, not submission. Fury. This is Admiral Helena Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You murdered 15,000 civilians on New Eden. There will be no negotiations, no terms, no mercy. Humanity does not bend. We break those who threaten us. Before Imperial analysts could process the implications of a unified human military command, the reports began flooding in. Imperial outposts near human space had gone silent. Mining operations ceased transmitting. Surveillance platforms disappeared from the network. Impossible, Admiral Krell whispered as the tactical display updated. They have no ships capable of these strikes. Our intelligence confirms. Your intelligence is worthless. Vex Mora snarled. How many vessels have we lost? 23, Grand Counselor, and 3 orbital facilities. The Empire had faced rebellions before. They had crushed species that resisted Imperial rule. Always, they responded with overwhelming force. A hammer to crush dissent. A battle fleet was assembled. 47 capital ships, hundreds of support vessels. Enough firepower to reduce Earth to molten slag if necessary. The hammer would fall, and the humans would learn their place in the cosmos. The fleet assembled at Outpost Fernax, the Empire's forward military installation nearest to human space. From there, they would launch a devastating campaign to subjugate humanity once and for all. They never got the chance. The human attack came without warning. Not raiders or strike craft, but a coordinated assault by 38 warships that Imperial intelligence hadn't known existed. Ships with technology that shouldn't have been possible for humans to develop. Admiral Krell watched in horror as the tactical display showed human vessels appearing inside the Imperial formation, somehow bypassing the defensive screen to strike at the heart of the fleet. Their weapons weren't the crude nuclear devices intelligence had reported. They were something else entirely. Something that ignored shields and armor alike. They're using some form of directed quantum disruption, a science officer reported, voice shaking. The technology is. They shouldn't have this. They can't have this. Imperial vessels began to die. Not exploding in conventional fashion, but simply coming apart at the molecular level, disintegrating into clouds of elementary particles. No debris, no escape pods, just dissolution. Admiral Krell ordered a retreat. Survival now took precedence over the Empire's pride. But the humans had anticipated this as well. Somehow they had compromised the hyperspace coordinates. Ships attempting to flee found themselves emerging into the gravity wells of stars or the crushing depths of gas giants. Of the 47 capital ships that had assembled at Vernax, only 3 escaped. Admiral Krell was not among the survivors. The message Earth transmitted afterward was brief. "This was our opening move. Cease all hostilities and withdraw from human space immediately, or what happened at Vernax will seem merciful compared to what comes next." The Dracari Empire had ruled the stars for 20,000 years. They had never known defeat. They had never faced a species that did not eventually submit to their will. Until now. The Reckoning. The Grand Council chamber had never been so silent. 12 of the Empire's highest officials sat around the obsidian table, their usual confident posture replaced by rigid tension. The holographic display at the center showed the steady advance of human forces through what had once been secure Imperial territory. "How is this possible?" demanded Councillor Zarvek, slamming his fist on the table. "They were pre-stellar barely 2 centuries ago." Vex Mora, her political position deteriorating with each human victory, struggled to maintain composure. "It appears they have been less than forthcoming about their capabilities." Less than forthcoming. Zarvek's voice rose dangerously. "They have weapons that unmake matter, drives that bypass our detection grids. Either our intelligence apparatus is criminally incompetent, or the humans have had assistance." The accusation hung in the air. The Empire had enemies, ancient rivals pushed to the margins of the galaxy, species that had resisted and been broken, but never fully subdued. Could they have found proxies in these humans? Whatever the explanation, Vex Mora said carefully, "We must respond decisively. I have authorized the deployment of the Worldbreaker." Murmurs spread around the table. The Worldbreaker was the Empire's ultimate weapon, a planet-killing device that had been used only twice in Imperial history, each time ending a rebellion instantly through sheer terror. "The humans must learn the consequences of defiance," Vex Mora continued. "We will target their most productive colony, Proxima B. Once they witness its destruction, they will understand the futility of resistance." The Worldbreaker was activated. A massive vessel, more mobile weapons platform than ship, it exited hyperspace near Proxima B with an escort of 100 warships. The colony below, home to 30 million humans, continued its activities, apparently unaware of the doom approaching. The Worldbreaker began its firing sequence. Energy built within its core, a controlled reaction that would project a beam capable of igniting a planet's atmosphere. 10 minutes to firing position. 5 minutes to energy threshold. 3 minutes before the Worldbreaker could fire, the human fleet arrived. Not 30 ships, not 50. 327 vessels materialized simultaneously, surrounding the Imperial forces in a perfect sphere of overlapping fields of fire. At their center was a ship unlike any the Empire had ever encountered. Twice the size of the Worldbreaker, its surface rippled with energy patterns that defied analysis. No visible weapons, no conventional drive emissions. It simply was. A transmission cut through all Imperial communications channels. "I am Admiral Helena Chen, commanding the UES Reckoning. You targeted our civilians. You threatened our home. This ends now." The massive human vessel pulsed once, and a wave of energy expanded outward. It passed through the Imperial ships like a ripple through water. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then systems began to fail. Not violently, not catastrophically, simply shutting down. Drives, weapons, life support, communications, one by one, every Imperial vessel went dark. Except for the command ship. On its bridge, the Imperial commander received a private transmission. Admiral Chen's face filled his screen. "Your weapons are disabled. Your drives are offline. Every ship in your fleet is now dependent on emergency life support that will last approximately 6 hours. I suggest you use that time wisely." The commander swallowed hard. "What are your terms?" "Unconditional surrender of all Imperial forces, immediate withdrawal from all territory within 50 light-years of any human settlement, reparations for New Eden, and you will deliver Vex Mora to us to face justice for the murder of our citizens." "The Empire does not surrender," the commander said reflexively, though his voice lacked conviction. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. "Then your crew will die, and we will continue to the next Imperial fleet, and the next, until someone in your hierarchy values life over pride." The commander looked around his bridge, at the officers who served under him, at the enlisted personnel who trusted him to make decisions that wouldn't lead to their pointless deaths. "I will convey your terms to the Grand Council." Chen nodded. "You have 6 hours. We will provide emergency power to your communications array only." Back on Dracari Prime, the Grand Council received the commander's transmission with disbelief. "This is absurd," Zarvek sputtered. "They cannot dictate terms to the Empire." Vex Mora said nothing. She was calculating, as she always did. The Empire had lost 3 fleets now. Their best technology had been neutralized with ease. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were winning decisively. "We could activate the other world breakers," someone suggested. "And what if the humans neutralize those as well?" Vex Mora finally spoke. "What if they turn our weapons against us? We don't understand how they're doing this." The debate raged for hours, but reality was undeniable. The Empire could not match the humans' capabilities. Pride would have to yield to survival. "We will offer alternative terms," Zarvek suggested desperately. "Surely they can be made to see reason." Vex Mora laughed bitterly. "They don't want reason. They want retribution." When the 6 hours had nearly elapsed, the Imperial commander received authorization to negotiate. But the terms the Council approved were far from what the humans had demanded. "Admiral Chen," the commander said stiffly, "the Grand Council offers the following. The Empire will withdraw from contested systems. Reasonable reparations will be discussed. A non-aggression pact will be established." Chen's expression remained impassive. "And Vex Mora. The internal affairs of the Empire are not subject to external influence." Chen nodded slowly. "I understand." She paused. "Your time has expired, Commander. May your gods welcome you." "Wait," the commander blurted. "There must be room for negotiation. The time for negotiation was before you murdered 15,000 innocents." Chen replied coldly. "The Empire taught us its methods well. You've shown the galaxy that you only respect overwhelming force. So that is what we've become." The transmission ended. The commander turned to his crew, apology in his eyes, as emergency life support began to fail. But death did not come. Instead, every Imperial vessel simultaneously lost artificial gravity, environmental systems recalibrated to minimum power. And a new message came through. This one broadcast to every crew member on every ship. "This is Admiral Helena Chen. Your leaders have chosen pride over your lives. We are not so cruel. Escape pods and shuttles now have sufficient power to reach Proxima B. Anyone who wishes to live has 30 minutes to evacuate. After that, these vessels will be destroyed." Throughout the Imperial fleet, chaos erupted. Centuries of discipline crumbled in the face of certain death. Mass evacuations began, officers and crew abandoning their posts, scrambling for survival. The commander watched it happen, knowing what it meant. Not just defeat, the end of the mystique that had kept the Empire dominant for 20 millennia. The illusion of invincibility, shattered beyond repair. On Dracari Prime, Vex Mora received the reports with growing horror. Not just the fleet abandoned. Reports were coming in from across Imperial space. Human forces were appearing in system after system, neutralizing Imperial defenses without firing a shot, offering the same choice to every Imperial installation: evacuate or die. And the Imperial citizens were evacuating. The Empire's hold over its territories, maintained through fear, and the promise of protection was dissolving. In less than a week, 30% of Imperial space had been effectively abandoned. The Grand Council's authority was crumbling. Subordinate species were declaring independence. Ancient rivals were reclaiming contested territories. Then the message came, directed specifically to the Grand Council chamber, bypassing all security protocols, appearing on their private displays. Admiral Chen, seated in what was clearly the bridge of her massive vessel. Your fleet commanders have chosen to save their crews rather than die for your pride. Your governors have abandoned their posts rather than face our arrival. Your empire is imploding, not because we are destroying it, but because you built it on fear rather than loyalty. Here are our final terms. The terms appeared below her image. Immediate dissolution of the Grand Council. Trial of all those responsible for the New Eden massacre. Autonomy for all Imperial worlds. Supervised dismantling of all Imperial military installations. Surrender of all Imperial advanced technology to a coalition of former subject species. You have 24 hours to accept, Chen said. After that, we come for Dracari Prime. Vex Mora looked around the council chamber, at faces that had once radiated supreme confidence, now showing only fear and desperation. We could evacuate, someone whispered. There are contingency plans, hidden worlds, where we would live as refugees, hunted by humans and every species we've ever subjugated. Vex Mora asked bitterly. No, there is only one path forward. 23 hours later, Vex Mora stood alone in her private chambers. On her desk sat a small vial of clear liquid, the traditional end for Dracari who had failed the Empire beyond redemption. Her communication console chimed, a direct channel to Admiral Chen. Have you come to gloat? Vex Mora asked. No, Chen replied. I've come to understand. Understand what? How to destroy a 20,000-year-old civilization in 2 months. How the Empire could have survived if you had approached us differently. Chen's expression was thoughtful. You assumed we would respond like other species you've encountered. That was your mistake. And what makes humans so different? Vex Mora couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. We spent our history fighting each other, Chen said simply. We nearly destroyed ourselves countless times. Those who survived learned to be very, very good at war, and very reluctant to start one. Vex Mora gazed at the vial on her desk, a predator species that learned restraint, until provoked. Chen nodded. The Council has accepted our terms. You will stand trial for New Eden, along with those who carried out the attack. And the Empire. The Empire as you knew it is finished. But the Dracari people will survive. Under supervision, as one species among equals, no longer rulers but simply citizens of the galaxy. Vex Mora closed her eyes. 20,000 years of history ended not by a superior military force, but by a fundamental misunderstanding of a species that had seemed so primitive, so predictable. We should have studied you more carefully, she said finally. Yes, Chen agreed. You should have. The transmission ended. Vex Mora looked once more at the vial, then slowly pushed it away. She would face the human justice system. Perhaps in understanding how they administered justice, she might finally comprehend how her empire had been so thoroughly broken by a species that, until recently, had been confined to a single world. Throughout the galaxy, the news spread rapidly. The mighty Dracari Empire had fallen, not through decades of war, but in mere months. And the species that had brought it low was already establishing a new order, one built on mutual defense and shared sovereignty rather than dominance and fear. In the void left by the Empire's collapse, a new era began, and at its center stood humanity, not as conquerors, but as liberators, a species that had proven, with devastating clarity, that they did not negotiate with those who threatened them. They simply annihilated them.